Hello,
Hi, my name's
everyone. My
Rochelle
name is
Thibodeau, and I'm a
Angelica,
speech
and I'm
language
currently a
pathologist at
reading
Cleveland Clinic.
interventionist at an elementary school. And today I will be showing you why you need to plan for your presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie. I am a patient care coordinator at New Radiance Med Spa and Cosmetic Center.
My name is Kesia Phipps, and I'm currently a support coordinator at a local agency in West Palm Beach. I work with clients that's facing barriers to accessing healthcare. I also work with them to navigate other social determinants of health issues, and I also work with them to navigate the healthcare system and to help them to have better health outcomes.
Good evening. My name is Marguerite Pierre, and I am Assistant Customer Service Manager at Publix Supermarket.
Today's presentation focuses on strategies from Cheryl Hamilton's Communicating for Results, chapters 11 and 12. It covers presentation structure and strategic use of verbal and visual support materials, techniques, and for leaving a lasting impression. Today's objectives are planning and research, organizing your content, presentation delivery, verbal supporting materials, as well as visual supporting materials. The outcome that you would be looking for is what the audience will take away from your presentation. In the presentation, you can teach them and show them numerous things. You can tell them about a new healthcare policy, or you can tell them about a new practice that has recently developed. When you are planning your presentation, you need to make sure that you are understanding the purpose that you want to give to your audience as well as the objectives. The purpose that you want to make clear to your audience is you have to be able to identify why you're giving this presentation. Is it to inform? Is it to educate, persuade, or entertain? To make sure that your objectives are clear and understood, you would use the acronym SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Each of these stand for a specific thing that you would need to have a successful presentation. S is for specific, which means it has to answer all of the 5 W's, which is who, what, when, where, and why. Next, you have M, which is measurable, and that includes the criteria for measuring the progress and making sure that everything is where it needs to be for your company. Next, we have A, which is achievable, and that means you have to be realistic and make sure that your goals that you are achieving have purpose and they are attainable. Next, you have R, which is relevant. So when you are doing a presentation, you want to make sure that your goals and your purpose is aligned with what you are presenting. And it has to be relevant to what you are talking about. If the audience notice that your presentation and what you are saying does not align with what is being shown, they're going to get confused and they probably won't pay attention. Lastly, we have T, which stands for time bound. That means that you have a deadline. You have to have a deadline. Now, for these presentations, you can't take too long because some audiences don't have long attention spans, and it's all about who your audience is, which we will get into a little later. Now, let's go into the key points. The key points is something that you need to make sure that they are covered and that you achieve them in your objective in the presentation. The next part of planning your presentation is understanding your audience. You need to understand your audience because you have to be considerate of the audience that you are going to be speaking to and understand who they are. So you would have to consider their age, their gender, their professional background, education, and the education level of your audience. And for example, if you're going to talk about insurance, you have to build a presentation that centers your audience, and that is about your audience, which would be healthcare professionals that are interested in learning about new insurances or buying insurance for their business. Now, you have to understand that your audience can vary. It can be students, it can be doctors, nurses, anyone. But you just have to make sure that you understand your audience so then you will not confuse them or yourself. The next thing that we will be talking about is tailoring the content. Tailoring the content means you have to adjust your content to and speak in the way that you speak to your audience. The way that you would talk to a group of students or just to regular everyday people isn't the same way that you would talk to healthcare professionals and policymakers. You need to make sure that whoever you are presenting to, your audience, is familiar with the vocabulary that you are using so they won't be confused and so that you will be able to keep on track and still keep them engaged without losing focus. Now, with that being said, you would have to adhere to their interests and needs. You can't just create a presentation and assume that everybody's going to want the same thing because everybody has different needs and interests. For example, you would have to understand before you present, you have to understand what problems they're facing. And you would have to understand and know why your presentation will help them. Next, we're going to talk about researching, which will be done by Rochelle.
Understanding why and what to research can significantly enhance your ability to engage and persuade your audience. Why does research matter? Research is crucial for successful presentations for several reasons. It helps ensure current and accurate content, which enhances credibility and relevance. Citing experts bolsters your authority, increasing your audience's trust. Through research aids in addressing questions effectively and supports main points with statistic quotations and examples, adding depth and clarity to your presentation. Also, in researching for your presentation, you want to tailor to audience's interests. You want to seek diverse perspectives and use creative visuals to engage effectively. This approach enhances your content quality, impact, and presenter confidence. By completing the why and the what, you are making your points more compelling and memorable. Where and how to conduct your research is essential for ensuring your presentations are credible, informed, and impactful. Remember to avoid the following common mistakes. You want to avoid over-reliance on personal knowledge. Supplement with other sources for a balanced perspective. You also want to verify internet information from multiple reputable sources for accuracy. As the internet offers a vast amount of information, a lot of it can be incomplete or biased. You want to use electronic databases for authoritative information like scholarly articles and reports to strengthen your arguments. You want to include respected sources such as scholarly articles, books, and credible publications for an in-depth analysis and expert opinions. By diversifying your research with these strategies, you're going to enhance your presentation credibility and thoroughness. Next, we're going to cover practical tips for integrating diverse sources effectively. Despite its vast resources, navigating the internet for reliable information requires careful consideration and strategic approaches. As you can see here, there are 3 recommendations. First, you want to evaluate your online information. This allows you to verify credibility and accuracy by cross-checking with non-internet sources. Not all the information is credible and it can be biased and outdated. To do this, you want to verify author qualifications, you want to ensure that the information is objective and current, and you want to validate the findings with at least one non-internet source and check for recent updates. Number 2, you want to optimize your internet searches. You want to use specific keywords and phrases that will allow you to refine your search results and save time. You want to utilize multiple search engines, for example, Google, Yahoo, or a meta search engine for broader coverage. When you diversify your search engines, you're going to enhance access to comprehensive information that you can utilize for your presentation. And lastly, you want to access the invisible web. This allows you to explore resources beyond standard search engines, known as the invisible web. Others may know this as something that we call Google Scholar. Accessing scholarly articles and proprietary information through platforms with licensed databases available with our libraries will allow you to add even more to your presentation. These resources will provide valuable insights not freely usually available online. By integrating these strategies into your research process, you're going to improve the quality, depth, and the reliability of the information you gather. These approaches ensure a more thorough understanding and effective utilization of diverse sources in your presentations or projects. Let's now discuss practical examples and explore how to effectively apply these principles in your research endeavors. The following steps are crucial for ensuring that your research is thorough, efficient, and enhances the quality of your presentations. Firstly, you want to outline your presentation by jotting down key points and noting any gaps. Consider what you already know and what additional facts, statistics, or examples you might need to find. Next, you're going to prepare your keywords. These will guide your online searches and help you find accurate and relevant information. Lastly, utilize these electronic databases that we discussed. They're available through college libraries or reputable organizations, and they offer verified information that can enhance the credibility of your research. They're also useful for cross-checking details found online. By following these steps, you'll streamline your research process and gather high-quality information for your presentation. Now we will review ways to enhance that search effectiveness. Understanding how search operators enhances your search precision will help even more with gathering information. This is known as Boolean operators. In this slide, you can see that there are common words that we can utilize to help us either narrow or expand our research. Utilizing the word or is going to broaden our research. Utilizing and or a plus sign is going to narrow our search. Making sure that we focus on relevance over quantity of search results. And we're going to have to adjust search terms for better outcomes if we find that we're not getting exactly what we need. If you find that you're on page 2 of a search engine, you're more than likely going to need to adjust your results. And as you can see in the refining search strategies, these are some tips on how to expand your results and also narrow them if you're having some challenges. Libraries offer access to extensive electronic databases. These databases include books, magazines, journal articles, government documents, and more. These databases, as you see on the slide, offer extensive, reliable information, which enhances your research quality and depth. These are just some examples that you can utilize for more information to support your presentation. In addition to electronic databases, there are also other sources such as printed materials. Printed materials remain essential for thorough research despite digital advancements. As you can see here, there are several other options that you can utilize, such as books, magazines, journals, newspapers, dictionaries, encyclopedias, and other specialized references, such as quotation books or yearbooks. When library and internet searches fall short, you may want to consider personal interviews for precise information. There are benefits to completing personal interviews, such as obtaining targeted insights directly from experts or stakeholders, as well as validating and supplementing existing knowledge and research findings. It's important to keep in mind when we're doing all of this research to write down all the information that you have researched to utilize in your presentation to avoid plagiarism. What exactly constitutes plagiarism? Plagiarism includes paraphrasing or quoting without citation. It also applies to visual content like images, charts, and graphs. There are a lot of consequences for plagiarism, including professional ethical concerns, severe penalties, and hindrance to learning and professional development. Some tips to avoid plagiarism. You want to always cite your sources. You want to use quotation marks for direct quotes. You want to provide clear citations for visual content. You also want to avoid pre-written speeches. And use Turnitin.com to check for unintentional plagiarism. It's important to remember to record research with note cards or digital quotes, which include the complete citation with the author, the date, and the source details. Now that you've gathered all of the necessary information, let's focus on organizing this knowledge effectively. Next, we are going to take a closer look on how to organize our informative presentation. I want to take the time to emphasize the critical importance of organizing in a business presentation. Whether you're aiming to inform, persuade, or simply impress, how you structure your presentation can make all the difference. Firstly, organization is going to ensure clarity and engagement. It helps your audience follow and remember key points, keeping them attentive and understanding your message. Secondly, it enhances credibility. A well-structured presentation makes you appear knowledgeable and trustworthy, which influences how your audience perceives your message. And furthermore, organization boosts delivery confidence. When your presentation begins to flow smoothly, you can deliver your points clearly and maintain a strong connection with your audience. And lastly, it's important to remember a strategic presentation begins with a clear introduction, followed by a well-developed body, and concluding with a strong summary. This strategic approach maximizes the impact of your presentation and leaves a lasting impression on your audience. When you start to organize your presentation, you want to start first with the body of the presentation. The following are essential steps for helping you organize the body of your presentation effectively. This process is important for ensuring clarity, engagement, and impact. Let's break it down into 3 main tasks. First, you want to determine your main points. After you select your topic and understand your audience, you want to take your ideas and make them into 3 main points. This is going to help your audience stay engaged and help them remember your message without feeling overwhelmed. Research has also shown anything over 5 loses the audience's interest and it decreases your credibility. Next, you want to choose the best organizational pattern for your main points. This can include patterns like topical, spatial, chronological, or causal. It's highly recommended you create mini outlines for each of these patterns to see which one best suits your topic and purpose. Seek feedback. This can help you ensure your approach is engaging and effective and help you decide which pattern to use. And finally, you want to expand your main points into a detailed outline using your chosen pattern. This outline will guide the development of each section of your presentation, ensuring a logical flow and coherence from start to finish. Next, you can move into organizing the introduction of the presentation. Creating an introduction is an important skill that can significantly enhance your ability to engage and persuade your audience effectively. There are 4 key steps to creating this impactful introduction. First, you want to take time to capture the audience's attention. You can do this by beginning with an attention-grabbing technique like a fact, a question, or a quotation. You want to avoid humor unless confidently delivered, as it can detract from credibility. Second, you want to motivate your audience. You want to clearly articulate how your presentation benefits them both professionally and personally. And you want to refer to the audience analysis to ensure relevance and value throughout. Third, you want to take time to establish your credibility. You can do this by demonstrating expertise through your personal experiences, research findings, interviews, and a credible introduction. It helps you build trust and respect with your audience. And lastly, you want to state your purpose and main points. You're going to conclude with a clear thesis statement. This should clearly state the purpose of your presentation and provide a preview of the main points that you are going to cover. Completing this process will guide how you wrap up your presentation and complete your conclusion. The conclusion ensures your message resonates long after you finish speaking. You want your audience to leave and remember the impact your presentation had on them. In order to do this, there's 2 main steps that you can utilize to craft an effective conclusion. First, you want to provide a final summary. During this, you're going to summarize the presentation's purpose and main ideas concisely to clarify any lingering questions and reinforce those key takeaways. You want to avoid introducing new points during this time. And finally, you're going to want to end with a memorable closing thought. Leave the audience with a lasting impression by using a thought-provoking statement, challenge, or powerful example that ties back to your opening remarks for a cohesive narrative. Now that you have your introduction, body, and conclusion, you must tie these ideas together through the use of transition. Transitions and presentations are going to serve to connect your ideas and sections together. This ensures a smooth flow and highlights key points for clarity. They play a crucial role in enhancing the overall coherence and effectiveness of your message while sustaining audience's interest throughout. There are different types of transitions to employ. You can do them within paragraphs, between sections, or during closing sections. And as you can see here on the slide, there are examples that you can utilize depending on where you're adding these transitions. Some other tips for effective use when considering utilizing transitions: you want to plan them during your speech preparation to ensure that they fit naturally with your content. You also want to practice delivering transitions in a way that maintains the flow and engagement of your presentation, ensuring each transition is relevant to the content to maintain coherence, and it's going to keep your audience connected to your message. Now it's time to focus on delivering our messages confidently and engagingly.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the overall delivery of the presentation itself and why this is important when giving a presentation. So the importance of the actual delivery of your presentation is crucial because it can pretty much make or break your presentation in itself, because you could have all of the information in the world, but if you don't portray that information in a memorable way, most likely the audience won't remember it. So there's this quote by Lee Iacocca: "You can have the brilliant ideas, but if you can't get them across, your brains won't get you anywhere." So some of the successful delivery methods that are the most common used today are extemporaneous speech, visual aids, and manuscripts. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth with these and explain why they're successful to use. Okay, so one of the more popular types of delivery methods for business speakers is extemporaneous speech. So this is when you have notes to guide you along your presentation, but it's not memorized word for word. This allows you to talk with the audience, have the audience ask you questions, and you're able to answer those and talk and be more interactive with the audience. But however, the notes bring you back to track and you're able to make sure you hit all of the points that you mean to hit, and overall make sure that you give a successful presentation. So another form of delivery methods is visual aids. So this is what we're using right now in order to give our presentation and make it a little bit more memorable and more personable. And so the PowerPoint is the most popular type of visual aid for a presentation. It is a form of extemporaneous speech because we use the PowerPoints as our guided notes to bring us along this presentation with us today. However, there are other types of visual aids. There's props and models that people can use and reference, but the most common use today are the PowerPoint and Google Slides, and this just allows you to have a visual as you're talking and make it a little bit more memorable and effective to the audience. Okay, so another form of effective delivery is manuscripts. These are more commonly used in the political field. Presidents, governors, and top-level managers use these a lot in their speeches, and they're a little bit harder to use because you want to make them conversational and entertaining. However, it is a word-by-word speech, so you kind of have to have that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the characteristics of giving an effective delivery, because we talked about the types of delivery, but now we're going to So delivery characteristics can come easier to some people rather than others. However, the good news is that they can be learned and they can be practiced, and anyone can give an effective presentation if you continue to practice and continue to practice your confidence. The more confident you are in delivering, the more believable you are to the audience, therefore you're going to be more memorable. So you always want to maintain an engaging tone. You want to keep the audience on their toes, making sure they're paying attention, because if you are monotone, they're gonna look elsewhere. So that's very important in delivering characteristics. And then you also want to know your audience. You want to use appropriate language. You don't want to talk in this big vocabulary where they don't understand what you're talking about. You want to make your ideas very clear and use appropriate language in order to making sure that your presentation is understandable. Okay, so as previously stated, in order to maintain an
Now let's talk about verbal and visual support in presentations. No matter how prepared you are to speak, the audience will daydream because we can think faster than we speak. As a presenter, your goal should be to inspire your audience and not just to feed them information. You want when you're done informing your audience that they remember and they also believe the information that you've shared with them. You will need to know when to use verbal and visual aids effectively, not only to inform your audience, but to make them want to hear more. Functions of supporting materials. Let's focus on the word support. When we hear the word support, the first thing that comes to mind is to hold strong. So functions of supporting material, implementing strategies to engage and retain your audience is crucial. Additionally, making content easily understandable for your listeners enhances communication effectiveness. So supporting materials are items that serve as a foundation for the ideas that you're trying to portray in your presentation. And these supporting materials have three purposes. And in the next slide, we're going to focus on those three purposes of using supporting materials. Now we're going to talk about the three purposes of using supporting materials in our presentation. And that would be to enhance clarity of complex ideas, proof of your claims in your presentation, and to increase interest in your presentation. To clarify, it is important to make the audience understand your ideas and points that you are trying to bring across. If there's no clarity in your presentation, you will fail to capture your audience. To prove to your audience, statements must be proven with solid sources. We want to present facts, not statements, or not false narratives. And to add interest as a presenter, you have to remember that everyone receives and processes information differently. So it's important that you use words that will bring interest and add interest to your presentation. Now let's talk about specific supporting materials we can use while we're presenting to our audience. And we have to remember, we want to keep our audience engaged. We want to keep them interested. We want to keep them wanting to hear more of what we're talking about. We don't want them to daydream. We don't want them to, think about what they're going to do when they get home, what they're going to have for breakfast. So let's talk about some materials that we can use to keep them engaged and wanting to hear as we continue. So some of the supporting materials that we can use are explanations, comparisons, illustrations, examples. We can also use statistics, we can use expert opinions, and we can also use citations. These supporting materials will definitely capture our audience and keep them interested and keep them, wanting to continue with the presentation and hear more of what you have to offer. While we're presenting, we want to use explanations and comparisons. In using explanation, we want to define terms or words. We may use a word that a particular audience member isn't familiar with. So if it's a word that needs to be explained or defined, it's best that we do that when we're doing presentations. Also, to show relationship between certain items, give instructions on how to do something. As far as comparison, show similarities and differences, and to also we must have two characteristics or two different things to compare to in the presentation. Using these two supportive materials will help the audience better understand what you're trying to bring forth or what you're trying to make them understand. Another way of captivating your audience is to use illustrations, or maybe you can start out with a story. If you're of a different culture, maybe you can start out with a story about, where you're from, or you can start out with a story about, something that you learned growing up, that you had an epiphany about, that you didn't know about. You can talk about something that's factual or hypothetical.
It's also good to use examples, which is like brief clarification. You can use factual references. Oh, here's an example of this, or a perfect example of what I'm trying to explain to you is this, this, and this. Um, and also, try to be effective with your examples. The use of statistics and expert opinions are also very good supportive materials to use to make your presentation more effective and come across, better with your audience. And in the use of statistics, you're going to, you can use a graph or you can use a pie chart to show that you're well informed about what you're presenting. You can also use numbers to show relationships. If you're presenting to, let's say, your work, your team members at work, you can use statistics to show how your clients are doing from one year to the next. Another thing that you can use is expert opinions, which is supporting ideas and using expert opinions. And we have to remember when we're using expert opinions or citations, we have to actually cite where we get the information from. We have to, give the author their credit where credit is due. We can also paraphrase, or we can use indirect or direct quotes. Now let's talk about visual supporting materials. Visual supporting materials is also very important to use while we're presenting to an audience. We can feed them information upon information upon information, but using visual supporting materials would be effective if we actually show the audience where we're going with our presentation. Almost like drawing a map in their head as far as where we're going in the presentation. Then that alone will, keep them engaged and capture them and make them want to hear more about your presentation. The use of visual aids is also very effective when presenting to an audience because, you don't want to just feed your audience information. You don't want to just give citations. You don't want to just read quotes. You don't want to give examples. You don't want to just use illustrations. You want to use visual aids to really, capture your audience, to really, help them to look at what you're trying to explain to them or portray to them in a different picture. And in the next slide, we're going to talk about different visual aids that we can use to, to keep the audience wanting to hear further what you're trying to portray to them or to present to them. We're going to talk about the use of video recording. We're going to talk about audio. We're going to talk about whiteboards. We're going to talk about handouts and also designs. These are, just a few things that will, bring more credibility to your presentation and also, keep your audience engaged. Now let's talk about the purpose of visual aids. And some of the purposes of visual aids are to grasp and hold your viewers. Um, Also to improve listening memory. I know, while doing a presentation, if you can show your audience something, that'll stand out to them, it'll be memorable. And even if they forget everything that that you've presented or that you've told them, one thing they'll definitely remember is, hey, I remember when, he gave us a handout, or, this is a handout that he gave us that we can always refer back to, or you can step aside and, you can engage the audience by using the whiteboard. You can also use PowerPoints, you can also use photographs. People always remember what they see, so if you're presenting and you have photographs that you can attach to a PowerPoint, or you can put on the wall before they come in, they're gonna, if they come into a room and they see pictures on a wall, like, what's this presentation is gonna be about? It'll keep them, engaged and make them want to hear more about what you're presenting. As I said, we talked about pamphlets. That's something that they can actually leave with as far as your presentation that they can always refer back to.
The proposed makeover challenge. Now that we have learned how to effectively plan, research, organize, and deliver a presentation with effective visual aids. Let's put our knowledge to the test. In the following activity, please transform the poorly designed presentation on the following slide. You will break off into a group of no more than 3 and work together to redesign the slide and present back to the audience. Five grade productivity apps. Here is an example of what it may look like. Less contrasted colors with simple text is more appealing to the eyes and easier for the audience to remember. Key points. To create impactful presentations, we need to plan and research and credibility, organize content for clarity and retention, deliver presentations with impact, utilize verbal and visual elements to enhance the message. In summary, creating impactful presentations involves 4 key steps. 1. Plan and research for credibility. Gather accurate and relevant information to establish trust and authority with your audience. Secondly, organize content for clarity and retention. Structure your presentation logically to help the audience follow along and remember key points. Third, deliver presentations with impact. Engage your audience with confident speech, expressive body language, and eye contact to make your message compelling. 4. Utilize verbal and visual elements. Enhance your message with carefully chosen words, tone, space, and complementary visual aids like slides and images. And by integrating these components, you can create presentations that are informative, engaging, and memorable. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing these principles in your future presentations. Conclusion. Presentation taught crucial presentation skills for healthcare leaders. Learn strategy use of verbal and visual support for lasting audience impression. Great presentations are concise, clear, and leave lasting impression on audience. First, healthcare leaders like us and others can derive important presentation skills and insights with regards to planning, organizing, researching, and delivering presentations. Second, for instance, we were able to obtain meaningful insights pertaining to the effective use of verbal and visual support for lasting audience impression. Lastly, we also learned that effective presentations tend not to have too much information, but understand consciousness, brevity, and leave a lasting impression on the audience. A great presentation gives smart ideas and advantage Nancy towards. In a nutshell, our informative presentation confirms the assertions by Nancy Doherty. A great presentation gives smart ideas and advantage.